Hi, this is Ren.
This is Casey.
And this is All Walks of Film.
We just got back from seeing the American live-action adaptation of Ghost in the Shell. And to start off with, we're just going to look at the movie as a movie in its own right, and then we can talk about it as an adaptation and all of that stuff later.
Yeah, so starting off, I thought that the movie was visually interesting. I like cyberpunk, so it was cool to see a modern movie incorporate some of these elements that you don't see a lot in live action form, save for Blade Runner, which came out in 1980.
And RoboCop and Judge Dredd. And
you're referring to like
Luc
a
Besson.
lot of movies that like came out in the 80s.
Did a movie like Fifth Element City looked kind of similar to that, didn't it?
That's in the 90s. Like we haven't seen it recently.
I understand your point, but I'm just saying that like to me the cityscapes were fairly impressive, but they also didn't feel that new.
Okay, fair enough.
It did feel a little stale to me because we haven't seen that since the 90s, and it's such iconic imagery, but like the whole thing where we have big tall buildings and we have roads that go in the middle of the air and we have these big light up advertisements that are everywhere and in your face. Okay, cool.
Yeah, we've seen it done better in Akira with the light up advertisements. Like I kept on thinking of Akira with that, and then it's like, well, if you're trying to make
too.
Yeah, if you're trying to make like a live action adaptation of Akira, this is going to get stale before you actually see it because of this.
I want to try to talk about it as its own thing, its own entity as much as I can, but at the same time, there are so many cinematic quotations in this movie to a lot of things. I mean, you pointed out that there's an action sequence that's taken verbatim from Iron Man 2. You know, there's a lot of that that's what most of this movie is. That's how this movie got made, is a producer or a writer said, we're going to take this scene from this movie and that's what it's going to be like, and then they did that. You know, so I do want to talk about it in its own right, but it's going to be hard, because it doesn't exist in its own right to a certain extent. But the visuals are really good. Weta did an amazing job. I think that since the yellow face CGI controversy that may or may not be true thing, DreamWorks kind of backed off from having a lot of creative control over the visuals, and Weta sort of took over.
Yeah, and Weta's been great. Just in
like
general.
Ever. Weta's just amazing. Weta is just revolutionary. And obviously, a lot of the practical effects and the visual effects are just top-notch. It's one of those things where I don't have a whole lot to say about it just because it's practically perfect. There's not a whole lot I can... Her suit looks amazing. I like that they sort of upgraded the suit for a more modern practicality than in the original movie.
The only problem that I had with it was sometimes I thought it was literally part of her skin, and other times it looked like a literal suit, which I thought was like really confusing visually to do it that way.
Her suit is all kinds of confusing in the original movie too, though, because I thought she was naked in that first scene to help her with that dive that she did, but no, because she does it later when she's in the water for not any particular reason. So there were a lot of really great homages too, which I liked. The production design was amazing, but you had cinematography and editing that really didn't allow you to soak in the atmosphere or a lot of the visuals.
Yeah, it was really strange how a lot of the shots chosen in the movie were just felt off. Like, there were no, like, striking shots, and most of the shots that you got that were iconic for this film were derivative of its original.
Or some other film that's really big and popular.
Yeah,
like they have the motorcycle driving scene from Akira with the streets and everything. Like, it's shot the same way.
Yeah, but it didn't create its own visual language, which was something that, based on the trailers, I was kind of hoping that it would.
Really, the only two elements that we got that are distinctly this film's version of Ghost in the Shell is the Red Robe Geisha, which is a callback to some stuff from Innocence. There's a geisha in there that was kind of a callback to. And that geisha was fucking awesome in terms of prosthetics and practical effects. And the way that it moved, I liked that they captured the uncanny valley-ness of the original with, like, the way that it just split up into, like, this weird-ass spider body and elongated itself, and it was, like, really kind of freaky. But that was less than 5 minutes of the film. And then other than that, there was... her suit kind of goes blue. It has, like, these blue little shocks to it, but there's not a lot in it that looks very distinctly, this is Ghost in the Shell. It's kind of like cinematic inbreeding, where Ghost in the Shell inspired The Matrix, which then inspired the Ghost in the Shell, and then it just ends up really watered down at that point.
Yeah, it's kind of the same problem that John Carter had, where it was originally based on the Edgar Rice Burroughs' John Carter of Mars, but like Star Wars was influenced by it. So many sci-fi and fantasy properties borrowed from it that once you finally get it, it feels like a knockoff, even though technically speaking, it isn't.
Right, exactly. The same thing happened with the Thief and the Cobbler, where they were making the Thief and the Cobbler, which then inspired Disney to make Aladdin, which came out first, so then they finally put out the Thief and the Cobbler as like a shitty version that everyone thought was a knockoff of Aladdin. This happens a lot, especially because what a lot of people don't understand is when movies are in production, a lot of these people know what else is in production at the same time.
And I don't think I can legally give a link to the Thief and the Cobbler recobbled edition.
I don't know if it's still on YouTube, because that's how I saw it. Was
okay,
on YouTube.
If I can find it on YouTube, I will give a link to it. If not, do yourself a favor. If you are somebody who likes animation, watch the recobbled edition.
You have not seen anything like the recobbled editions.
It's amazing. Like, it's on par with the original Ghost in the Shell, Akira, all that kind of stuff. Like, I'm not even kidding you.
I mean, in terms of quality, yes, but in terms of aesthetics, not at all, in a good way. Anyway,
right. That's
not what we're talking about. I guess getting more into the movie besides just did it look pretty, which obviously, of course, it looked pretty. This film has a major problem. I'm sorry, I did not mean to make that a pun. But this is such a Hollywood motif in movies that I kind of hate when it doesn't work, and in this case it doesn't work. The Major is so special. She is so special because of her brain and her humanity, and she is the first of her kind, and she is just super wonderful, and the people who created her want to protect her and kill her because she's just so incredible. Why?
It's also this concept that I'm getting really sick and tired of, and I know it goes back to the hero's journey and everything of the concept of the chosen one. We've seen it way too much. I would rather see average people trying to fucking figure shit out for themselves and not this whole chosen one, you were the most unique fucking person.
But also, besides her technological advancements, which the point of the movie is to say that she has more than her technological advancements, what does she have to offer at all? I can't tell you a thing about her. I can tell you one trait of her old body that you never even get to see. Like, you never get to see her do this at any point in the movie. But one thing was in her original human body, she was very anti-government. She would write these pamphlets about, talking against the technological encroachment on humanity and whatever. That's one thing I can possibly tell you. But her as she is in the movie doesn't give a shit about any of that and doesn't bring it up ever. But, the whole thesis of the film is that her humanity is more important than her physical body. And she talks about how, at the end, she has this whole thing of, it's our humanity, that's our virtue. But why? She feels sad when robots die, kind of. And she has kind of a vague sense of moral justice, sort of, and she has that scene where she flips a Fato, which is kind of funny, I guess, and she's hot. I don't really think she's that hot in the movie, but I'm assuming she's supposed to be. It doesn't matter if she is or not. I'm just trying to come up with a trait or a quality about her, and most of it is that she jumps around and shoots things. I don't know what makes her special. I don't know what makes her human. I don't feel any attachment to her character. I don't know why she needs to find out her identity, or what she really gained from finding her identity. I don't get the point. She's not special at all. She's boring and bland and just taking everything else away and only looking at this movie, she did not need to be the main character.
So, that being said, I did think that there was an interesting concept that they could have explored more. They constantly said, it was almost like a mantra in the film, but they constantly, whenever she was going into the system, she would say, I give my consent.
Right.
And obviously there are parallels that you can make about what we accept, what we allow ourselves to be. There are
also what we allow other people to do to us.
Yeah. And you can see that as possibly being about sexual consent, alluding to that at least.
But it's also about social consent, and I like that it is kind of ambiguous. And if that was like the driving theme of the movie, I think I would have liked this movie a lot more, because from a feminist perspective, I thought that element in the movie was fucking awesome, where she keeps giving her consent, and then it's like, we never needed your consent. And then her boss, spoilers if you don't want to hear this, but then her boss asks her, do I have your consent? I'm your superior and whatever, but do you give me consent to do this thing? And then, from that point on, their relationship is, I authorize you to do whatever you want to do. You have the control, you have the freedom. That would have been a lot more interesting if the movie was more about her trying to take control of her life, because that was significantly more interesting than her discovering what her humanity was. And that was more the basis of the story anyway, because this was pitched as, they created me, but they cannot control me. It's a revenge flick about a cyborg who wants to rebel against her creators, whatever.
But
there wasn't enough of that.
In the film, there was never a point where she lost control.
There was only one point where it lasted less than a minute, where she said, I don't give consent. And they were like, we don't need your consent. But then nothing bad happens to her anyway.
It seems like in the narrative that you're trying to tell, and I'm not talking about the original film in this argument, but, you know, if you're going to have this be a theme of your story, you need to play around with it.
Mm-hmm. When a lot of people say, like, this is boring and it's dumb, they're not wrong. Lucy was significantly more stupid than this. Let's not mince words. It was super stupid, but, but they did a lot with their loose-ass, completely inconceivable concepts. There was a lot more visually happening, there was a lot more action happening. They did all sorts of weird-ass creative things, like she turns into pixie dust and then turns herself into a flash drive after being the weird monster from Akira. Like, there was a lot of stuff that happened in that movie, and in this movie, not so much. He didn't play around with a lot of the themes for, like, visual action and impact. You know what? I preferred Lucy trying to rip off Hardboiled than any of the action in Ghost in the Shell except for Beat Takashi scene in the car, which was really only cool because he, besides the fact that he's Beat Takashi, he's like Yoda, you know, like this little old man who's actually super awesome. But a lot of it does feel stale. It didn't feel like there was anything new, and especially considering that cyberpunk isn't unheard of, but it's a very small market.
Yeah, I mean, steampunk is bigger than cyberpunk, post-apocalyptic, you know, pretty much all these niche things are more popular than cyberpunk, even though cyberpunk feels like it should be more popular.
Yeah, but this movie didn't have anywhere new to take it. It didn't give any sort of modernized allegory about society. It's still, like, stuck in the 90s, which is insane because we've made all these technological advancements since then, but it's still stuck in that same mindset of this is what our future is going to be like, and these are the problems we're going to have.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that comes down to the limitations of the script. I think that the screenwriters, since this is sort of an adaptation, you know, kind of an amalgamation of all the anime series, manga, movies that have come before it, I think that they should have taken sort of a Dark Knight approach to it, where you capture the essence of it, but make it something different. Because clearly, you know, the movie isn't trying to be Ghost in the Shell. Like, it is, but it isn't.
Right.
There are so many missed opportunities in this movie. One that I really want to get into, should we get into the race thing?
I mean, yeah. Just in terms of the narrative, the racial aspect was really flippin' weird.
Right.
Excluding the controversy, excluding real-world politics, in this particular environment, it was pretty fucking weird that this clearly took place in an Asian city at least. Everyone in the background was Asian, but then everybody in the forefront, really almost everybody, is white, or maybe, if you're lucky, another ethnicity, besides white or Japanese.
But they weren't major characters in the film.
They weren't major characters in the film or anything like that, although Ladria, who's barely even in the TV series, had more to do with the plot and had more character and more screen time and more lines than fucking Togusa. And then they didn't even get Togusa's character right. Okay, that's about the adaptation. I'm sorry, this makes me mad. Actually, there's a lot of inconsistencies in the story, though, too, because, like, with Bato and the dogs, that was fucking weird. Oh, I feed all these random stray dogs. Oh, Gabriel is this one dog who's a stray. But he's actually my own dog that I keep in my home. Which one is it?
Yeah, that was really unclear. But, like, getting back to the whole racial thing, because, like, this was something that was, like, a huge controversy, but I just want to talk about it in the context of the film for right now. So, the main character of the movie is named Mira Killian.
Which is an extremely Irish name, but also a very stupid name.
First of all, given the reveals, and I will say that this is a complete spoiler review, so, like, if you're not wanting to get spoiled, stop now. But I think it's really weird that they would pick an Irish name if her character is being raised by somebody who's French. And then her body is Japanese. Like, well, her mind is Japanese. And it's like, so you couldn't pick a French name, which, honestly, Renee might be a good name for that, because Renee does mean reborn in French. So that could be a really interesting choice for name. Obviously, there's some other iterations, but it really makes no sense for her to have an Irish name if there's nothing in the context of that. And just for those who haven't seen the movie, what the movie essentially says is she died and her brain was put into a machine's body, and the remnants were there of her old self, her ghost in the shell.
The whole thing with her name just reeks of the fact that they put literally no thought into it, because they're like, oh, we're gonna name her Mirror of Society and Killer because she's built to be a killer. We're gonna make that her name. And there you go. That way then we don't have to deal with the fact that she has a Japanese name and it means something, even though it sounds super stupid.
Yeah, and if Julia Binoche, like...
Who was like a mother figure to her in the movie.
If she had like a daughter or something like that had a name, and then she decided to like rename the machine that would fit in the context of the story, and then you could play on with mothers because that's already in the theme of the story. That seems like a logical way to take it, but no, there's no explanation. I think it's really dumb to give her a name that doesn't even fit the ethnicities of anybody involved in the film.
Well,
are there Irish people in the movie?
There is literally no Irish people, no Irish name. I mean, there's a character named Cutter. That's about it. But this is a post-racial world, supposedly. That's about the adaptation, but in our other podcast, we're going to get into exactly why Ghost in the Shell never, ever took place in a post-racial world. I mean, maybe the manga, but in terms of both in the movies and the TV show, no fucking way. Yeah, the name is stupid, but it matches her character. It's bland and boring and wishes that it was a lot more interesting than it really is.
Yeah, this is just a slight step above straight to DVD.
Pretty much, which is...
And as far as the story goes, just on par with like straight to DVD stuff.
It's just so tropey, and it's been done so many times before, and even the whole twist where it's like, the bad guy who's a terrorist is really her best bud from back when! That's been, like, kind of the theme of Hollywood movies lately, is, like, we're gonna have versus movies where they end up teaming up, and it's a totally okay. Like, I'm pretty sure Godzilla vs. King Kong is gonna do exactly that. They're gonna team up and take on a different monster, so you don't have to root for one or the other.
Yeah, I can't wait until we get back to, like, versus movies where, like, Batman and Superman actually fight, and there doesn't have to be, like, this whole bullshit thing of, like, oh, something else is going on. No, just, if you're gonna name a movie something versus something, just have them fight.
Yeah, and I mean, even though you did that, there was still no, like, moral ambiguity to this movie. Brioche, Oulette, what's her name? Oulette is still a good guy. You know, she's just clearly a good guy, and that's it. Cutter is just a bad guy, and that's it, even though it makes no fucking sense. Somebody has to be out to get her. So we're just gonna do that.
Also with these philosophical ideas that are being hinted at, but not explored, you get no nuance or ambiguity with any of the fucking characters in this movie, which is something that this story, once again, not talking about the original, that this story needed. There needed to be
I didn't give a shit about anybody. And that's a problem. Even Bato, who's like the closest to having a semblance of a personality, I didn't care about anybody. I didn't know who these people were. I knew what they were doing, but if I don't care about the people, I don't really care what happens to them. Especially when, like, the movie really shies away from anything bad. Like, Bato gets his fucking eyes blasted out somehow. They didn't really make that clear in the action sequence, but somehow he's blinded or burnt in his eyes or something, and he has to get them replaced. And the movie spends no time on the pain that he feels, having his face burnt off, possibly, and then spends no time on the, oh yeah, I had to get, like, cybernetic enhancements. And they were kind of hinting at maybe it's a bittersweet thing of, like, oh, well, at least it's better now, because, like, I can do all these cool things, but they don't get into any deep-seated emotion of, hey, I lost another part of what made me human.
Yeah, and for Bato's character, that seems like something that would be a major thing for him.
Yeah, losing your eyes, that's a big fucking deal. Being in insane amounts of pain, that's a big deal. And the movie brushes it off very quickly and doesn't get into any of that in terms of acting or in terms of writing. Everything just feels very superficial. You know, the movie just kind of happens and that's it. Like I said, it's a movie.
So let's get into Kuze. Because Kuze was kind of an amalgamation of a couple characters in the anime series and the...
Right, because he's kind of the puppet master in a lot of ways, yeah. I mean, as a villain, okay, so he was the original Motoko gone wrong. Cool, that's interesting. What are you gonna do with that? He speaks with a stuttery speech, sometimes.
I thought that effect was kind of cool.
The effect was cool, but that was it. Like, oh, he looks more mechanized, which was also kind of cool, but, like, okay. He had anger management, and he was mentally unstable. Can we see that? No, of course not. Oh, he had an original body, and he had, like, this whole relationship with her in a past life. Can we see any of that? No.
Also, based on his tattoos, it looked like he had a previous body with just, like, a white person's head on it. Because, like, no.
Yeah, that's exactly what it looked like. You're right.
Yeah, like, because clearly he has, like, Yakuza...
He has Yakuza tattoos, and his name was Hideo, and the implication is that his former body was Japanese, especially since he has, like, these Asian-style tattoos.
And the reason why I say Yakuza specifically is, in Japan, tattooing is not necessarily illegal, but it's very frowned upon. And you can't actually go to certain establishments if you show your tattoos. Mm-hmm. It's really weird.
Because it's really associated with Yakuza. That's the reason why.
Even if you're American, they'll just look at you and they'll just be like, no, you can't come in here. And that's actually outside of the whole gaijin thing that they have as well. Right.
And getting back to that, here's part of the reason why, like, the whitewashing thing is such a big deal and all this stuff. Putting it in Japan... / maybe Hong Kong / we're going to keep the ambiguity from the original movie so we can try to sell more overseas sort of thing, didn't add anything to the movie. Like, nothing culturally was added, nothing made it more... You could have put it in America and it wouldn't have really made a difference.
Well, and when you do it this way, when you have the story literally say that they're Japanese and now they're in white people's bodies...
Without addressing that.
Yeah, this movie literally... is inviting a conversation to be made on that.
Without actually having that conversation, period.
And the movie could have basically given everybody the finger with its whitewashing thing if that was put into the context of the film.
Right.
You know, like actually criticizing it. You could have still saved it.
Right, like, The Handmaiden was, you know, it has its actual storyline about the characters, but then it also has this larger allegory about the national tensions between Japan and Korea and how that works. You could have put an allegory about the relationship between America and Japan, historically and culturally, there's a lot that you could have done with that you just decided to ignore and not deal with. You know, the fact that you have a character ignoring all the controversy, just on paper. You have a character who's from a Japanese family, who is a Japanese woman whose brain is now put into a white person's body that she doesn't recognize, is never fucking addressed at all. It's just, oh, I found out my identity and now I'm whole. Even though I don't even express that I have any understanding of who I used to be.
Also, you don't have the mannerisms or anything, and I could get the program and forget the memory and all that kind of stuff, but, like, it just seems like there are so many ways to make it work, even if you're going to do this.
Well, it was really weird, too, because, like, she was taking that stuff that was specifically there to, oh, hey, you take this stuff, and it's because they're tricking you into forgetting what your real life is.
Are you talking about, like, the pills or whatever they were?
The, like, breaky glow stick thing that she put in her neck. Like, she breaks it open just like a glow stick. It's so weird. But she sticks it in the back of her neck, and she's told that it's so then her brain doesn't reject her body. But then Kuze told her, no, they do that so they can keep you brainwashed and you don't remember who you are. So you would think if she stops taking that, and she discovers her identity, maybe she'll remember shit. No. Does she know anything about who she used to be? No, not really. She knows that she wasn't into the government very much. She tells, like, this whole thing of, like, we were best friends and we ran away and we lived in this house, and it's like, that's all very vague and non-specific. Thank you. There's no way that you can possibly show a flashback besides the one single shot where you see Motoko Kusanagi in her original body and you literally can't even see her face. Thanks, movie. Like, I don't know why I'm supposed to give a shit about any of these characters if I can't see anything, if I'm not given any details. If you literally can't show me, then tell me. And if you can't tell me, then I don't give a fuck.
Right. This movie almost begged for one of those painful exposition scenes.
That would have been anything except for, like, it's just these vague Peter Pan sounding like, oh, we ran away and lived together and it was great until we were abducted by the police.
Yeah, but then you don't feel the pain of that, even though Motoko in this film, Mira in this film clearly shows that she has emotions. Something that she didn't have in the original series.
In the original movies, but in the TV show, she has a wider range of emotion that she exhibits.
Which is a different aesthetic, a different choice.
Yeah, but I still think it worked there. It might have worked here if you had a better actress. You know, for all this shit about, oh, her pedigree, she was made to be a cyberpunk, whatever, because she was in Lucy and Lost in Translation and, and Under the Skin. Yeah, but she sucked in all of those, and even though this was a better performance than those, it was still bland and boring. And there are people who have done robots well. Alicia Vikander perfectly had the physicality of humanoid robot down pat. And she only did that once. And she did a way better job than Scarlett Johansson and her slightly scoliosis-looking body that didn't really work as a robot or as a human at all. It just seemed like she was trying way too hard to be awkward. And then, Summer Glau did robots really well too. Or at least, like, government-made human machine. Also better than Scarlett Johansson did.
Like I said before...
Even if you were gonna do white, I think almost anyone except Scarlett Johansson would have done a better job, acting-wise. She did not do a very good job in this. She hasn't done a good job in a long time because she just comes off as bland and bored.
Well, and if she's gonna be white, why do you even have to include this whole Motoko thing? Like, what, to give anime fans who are already fucking pissed off?
Well, she was always going to be Kusanagi. They just made that change at the last second because people were like, what the fuck? They were like, no, see, we changed it. She's not Japanese now.
But you notice they didn't do that with Michael Pitt because they changed his name to Kuze, and his original name was Hideo. So, like...
That doesn't make any fucking sense.
So, overall, I thought the movie was visually interesting. There were definitely some practical effects that I thought worked. A lot of the CGI was... it was a little wonky at parts, especially the... What do you call those things?
What things?
Well, in the movie, they didn't refer to them as what they're supposed to... The Tachikomas.
Oh, the Tachikoma, yeah. What did you think of the action? Because This is one of those movies where, to me, I'm like, oh great, half the action sequences I can't see. Awesome.
So I could definitely tell the wire fu in the scene, like it was kind of weightless.
Yeah, no, it definitely was. I know exactly what you're talking about.
So it didn't have that dynamic that I was hoping for, where like things felt like raw and all that kind of stuff. And that's one of the things that I'm sick and tired of so many actors trying to do their own stunts. You're an actor. Trust your stunt people. Like, even though you might do some of your own stunts, trust me, the stunt double is going to do better than you. Just trust them.
And again, Scarlett Johansson's
and you're not Tom Cruise. You're not Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is the only person that I can think of that can do physical stunt.
Jennifer Garner did a great job doing her own stunts in Alias. You back the fuck off right now.
Okay, well, I mean, there are a couple of exceptions. Obviously, when it comes to like Asia, there's Jackie Chan, Jet Li, and then you got the people on The Raid, Redemption, and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, there are actors that can do their own stunts. It's just...
Right, but...
You kind of want stunt doubles to kind of play in between, because not everybody can do everything.
I actually thought that the only fight scene that worked really well was the one in the club where she was attached to the stripper pole. And that had one of, like, some of the worst lines in the whole movie, but... I thought that was the only time the action actually worked, where it felt real and you could actually see what was going on, and it wasn't in, like, really obnoxious slow motion, because the only time you could see it is if it was, like, really slowed down. I'm just like, can I get some action, for the love of God?
It had this, like, that moment had, like, a dynamic where it was, like, raw, and it felt
and
like,
her being handcuffed to it really played into, like, the choreography and made it interesting, but, like, when she was kicking people on the head, that was one of the only times where I was like, you actually kick somebody on the head. Movie making 101. Make me believe what's actually happening on screen.
But it also played into the whole thing that she doesn't dance, and then it's kind of this dance where she's attacking people on the pole. Like, I thought that was kind of cool.
That was the only action scene I actually liked besides Beat Takashi's scene.
There was a part of the fight scene with the invisibility that I liked. It was mostly like what was happening before, like when he was like doing like parkour stuff.
Yeah, you're talking about through the marketplace?
Yeah. Like I like that. I like the visual.
I thought that kind of had like the weightlessness to it too, though.
Once they actually started fighting, yes.
No, I mean like specifically when he jumps on top of the building, I was just like, do you weigh 5 pounds?
Okay. I would need to watch that scene again. Fortunately, it's online, so I can check it out. But you could have hired a better cinematographer for this film, because the production design team was doing a lot
of the work.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much the only positive thing that I can like say with absolute confidence and a reason to actually watch the movie is its production design.
Right, and I did like that the movie wasn't afraid to have invisibility fight sequences.
Yeah.
I like that at least conceptually they weren't just like, oh, we have to make her come back so you can see what's happening because we couldn't see it anyway, so just make her invisible and play around with that. That's fine. The only thing, like, visually that really bugged me was the ending, where she did the, like, wave in front of her face thing. It didn't remind me of the original movie that I was quoting. It reminded me of that move from Showgirls. Where it was just like, glitter! Like, it just looked so cheesy and bad.
Yeah, so overall, I would say that I was expecting to hate this movie more than I did. There were enough aspects of this movie to keep me engaged to like a certain extent that it wasn't a complete loss that I was kind of expecting from this film.
I personally think that the only reason why I was as okay with a lot of the stuff as I was because I know the longer extended source material. Which is bad. The original 2 movies are short. But somehow, like, a lot of these storylines, I have to pull from my memory of, oh, I know why they're chasing that guy because I saw the other movie where they were chasing that guy. You know, like, it was things like that the whole movie where I just can't say, from my own perspective, how somebody who hasn't engaged in any of the source material is going to follow the movie. I'm not saying they can't, I'm just saying I don't know.
There has been a trend of certain media, specifically movies, making an adaptation that is more homage than creating its own thing, and the only way that you can actually appreciate it is if you know the original material. part of the reason why I like the movie Ender's Game is because I read the book. It's a good accompaniment to the book, but it doesn't replace the book. It also isn't as great of an adaptation because so much of it relies on me filling in the blanks of what the book gives me.
Right.
I had the same issue with Watchmen.
I still feel like you can follow Watchmen if you haven't read the comic. I don't think you would like it as much. Well, actually, I think that's the only way you can like it is if you haven't read the superior comic. But I don't hate Watchmen as much as a lot of people. But a lot of the like depth of the comic is just completely lost. Kind of like with this movie, where it's just like, we're going to introduce these themes and then not get into it at all. It felt exactly like a college student who waited until the night before to write their 20-page thesis paper and maybe had some more developed ideas, but really just wrote down the highlights because they were trying to get it done on time. And considering the fact that they spent a long time on the script and they did like 2 or 3 rewrites, that's shitty.
I think the big issue, and one thing that I've said, and I do actually really want to get into this at some time, is Hollywood needs to stop rushing movies. This movie felt rushed. But what's crazy is the production design team that needs a lot of time.
They pulled their shit together.
They pulled their shit together, and
fair,
it didn't feel rushed.
Well, they
How is it that the writing team feels more rushed than the production design team?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at Suicide Squad. Well, everything was rushed with that.
Yeah,
but there are some times where like you look at the production design and you're like, oh wow, that's great. And then it's like, well, how much time did you actually spend writing the script?
Mm-hmm. That's because art department people know how to get their shit together.
They just know how to get it done fast.
Dude, art design...
They had 3 years to work on this.
I know.
You could improve the script in 3 years?
That's what I've been saying. It's just like, why does it feel like they waited until the last second and then didn't spend any time on things like theme, recurring motifs, this entire idea of identity where you did nothing to develop the identity of your protagonist.
Yeah, and then all this stuff about, oh, she's special. And then fucking quoting Batman, like how many fucking times?
Twice, because...
No, I think it was more than that.
Olette said it at the beginning, and then Mira said it at the end. Well, the reason why you think it's more than that is because it's just so insanely obvious that it's like, why is she Batman? Yeah. So next time we'll talk more about how it stacks up as an adaptation and some of the cultural stuff about it.
Alright, so let us know what you think of the movie. We usually are pretty fair. We are very opinionated, but I like hearing other people's opinion. And let us know what you think of the whole controversy, and maybe we'll include it in our next video.
Let us know if there's any characters you really liked. Do you think that Mira Killian has any particular qualities that do make her special?
Yeah, and specifically in this film.
Well, yeah.
Try to separate yourself from this being an adaptation.
Even though we didn't do a good job at that.
I'm really sorry about that. I tried really hard. So
like I said, it's difficult.
If you can't do it, I'll forgive you.